My dad started making it very difficult for Brian to be around me. I think Brian got a sense that my dad was on the watch. And so he started to really drive a wedge between my dad and me.
Y'all, a couple days ago, I watched that new mini docuseries, Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, and I'll tell you what, Drake Bell's mother, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be charged because you were a negligent parent. How dare you leave your baby alone with the creep like Brian Peck?
Today my special guest is the executive producer of the Amanda Show, Dan Schneider.
Hi.
Now you're the executive producer of the show.
Yes, I'm the executive producer and the head writer.
I got a huge problem with these child actors' parents, whether it's Amanda Bynes' parents, whether it's Britney Spears' parents, etc. Because here's the thing, y'all are so quick to collect the fundage from pimping your kid out to all these networks and all these slimy producers. But when it comes time to protect your child, where are you? You're not there. You write them off because they're a kid and we don't believe a kid. Maybe they're imagining things.
I'm thirsty. It's not possible. This has been me in a video. Come on, give up the juice.
But I did say to her, and I said this to her in person, I said, but you never, ever leave Drake alone with Brian Peck, and you never let him be around him unsupervised, period, whatsoever.
Because he was there, he watched how this scum conducted himself around children on set. He was handsy with Drake and many other children. The network allowed it, and when Drake's father went around asking people, is this normal? Because I find this to be wildly inappropriate. One person in particular told Drake's father that maybe he's homophobic. Are you out of your mind?
Drake would be in the dressing room or something, and in would pop Brian. Just touch Drake. You know, do things that, wait a second, what are you doing? Drake can put that on himself. And the thing is, this is in front of people.
And that's just one example of the many times that Drake Bell's father was gaslit by all of these immoral predators. I'm sure y'all have seen that footage of Dan Schneider, Nickelodeon's golden boy, groping Miranda Crossgrove on the set. She's trying to inch away, she's wildly uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's like, this is your boss. And he would ask people for massages and all kinds of lewd acts on set, which is wildly inappropriate. And the fact that the network did nothing to punish or penalize this man that abused his power speaks volumes about their character.
This is why I'm in Hollywood.
Yeah, eat your cereal, kids.
Did she say nice things about me? Because I will tase her.
Fast forward to 2018, they decide they're not going to work with this man anymore, but what about all those years prior of allowing him to get away with atrocities? Look at what Amanda Bynes looks like now. Remember that show, The Amanda Show? I Do was one of my favorite shows growing up, and I watched it and I said, you know what? I want to be like these kids. It would be so fun to be an actor. I remember thinking that. And then I watched this docuseries and I was horrified.
I just opened my eyes, I woke up, and he was sexually assaulting me. I froze and was in complete shock and had no idea what to do.
Drake's mother, Robin, allowed her 15-year-old son to go on tour, to go to Disneyland multiple times, and have sleepovers with a 43-year-old man. This isn't a blood relative, this is a stranger. Let me know in the comments if your parents would ever allow that to happen. Mine certainly wouldn't. And walk me through this, Robin. Drake's father mentioned multiple times that he wanted to drive Drake to all these auditions, but instead you entrusted your son, that's 15 years old, to a 43-year-old stranger named Brian Peck.
I had no idea how to get out of the situation. I couldn't run outside, have my phone. I mean, I was just, you know, what am I gonna call my mom and be like, hey, this just happened, can you come pick me up? I'll just sit here and wait. I had no car, I didn't drive.
I felt really bad for Drake's father, but when he saw Brian Peck touching his kid inappropriately right then and there, we're out of here. That's what it should have been. You gotta protect your baby. You can't worry about these Hollywood people saying that you'll never work in this town again or any of their bullshit. It's not true. You gotta believe in yourself and your God-given ability. And when you're the talent, you could go anywhere. This guy was a dialogue coach. He was a nobody. He was a nobody that knew a lot of people and built these connections up, but who cares? When you have a skill set and you believe in yourself, you can build those connections yourself. You don't need these people. But that's the problem with Hollywood and a lot of these other establishments, is that there's all these predators and all these people that abuse that power position. And I'm very happy that we live in a day and age where people are starting to wake up and try to protect children and make continuous efforts to not only protect children, but to protect victims of these disgusting, immoral sexual deviants that want to hurt people sexually in order to feel more powerful about themselves. For the first time, Drake Bell is opening up about being sexually assaulted by Nickelodeon dialogue and acting coach Brian Peck. Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, the up-and-coming ID documentary, airing March 17th and 18th, dives into both the alleged emotional abuse by Nick creator Dan Schneider and the physical abuse by Brian Peck. In 2003, Peck, 43 at the time, was arrested on 11 charges, including sodomy, lewd act upon a child 14 or 15 by a person 10 years older, and oral copulation by anesthesia or controlled substance, but the minor was not named until now. My name is Drake Bell, and I came here today to tell my story. Bell says during the documentary's third episode, before detailing his close relationship with Peck, whom he met in the beginning of season 2 of The Amanda Show. At first, Bell's father was his manager and became uncomfortable about how much time Peck was spending time with his son, so much so that he went to production and told them, I don't see anything abnormal, but it just doesn't, I don't have a good feeling, he said. At the time, Joe Bell claims production told him that Peck is gay and said, maybe you're just homophobic and you just don't understand that he's a touchy-feely guy. I pray to God the internet finds the dumbass that said that to Drake Bell's father and they get held accountable as well, because it has nothing to do with that man being gay and everything to do with it's wildly inappropriate for an older man that's 43 years old to be handsy like that with children. And to be in a setting where this is allowed, there should be a whole bunch of things in place to prevent that, to make sure that these kids are looked out for and they don't have to have loaded encounters at work at that young an age. You think it's normal for Amanda Bynes to be playing all these different characters when she doesn't even know who she is?
Amanda, demonstrate. Spitball in front of
This thing there is a roll of paper, and you get a gallon of fresh spit, and then you spit in here and put a little target in this thing with my jig, and then you spit in the baby with the jig, and you spit right there, and then you blast it. Dry wash.
And then on top of that, you got a fat pussy like Dan Schneider that's a creep trying to touch all these kids on set, and you got to worry about that as well? Drake's father backed off after feeling ostracized and eventually was pushed out of his son's life because Drake Bell and his mother lived in Orange County. It seemed easier to stay at Peck's home in LA when he had an audition. Spending time at Peck's home wasn't a regular for the kids of Nickelodeon. All the parents loved him too. Everyone trusted Brian, said Kyle Sullivan, who appeared on The Amanda Show and all that. Sullivan also recounted a barbecue at Peck's house where he had a shrine to the Planet of the Apes in the garage and one painting that didn't belong, a birthday clown with balloons. When the kids asked Peck about it, he proudly showed them that it was a gift from the serial killer John Wayne Gacy, and on the back was a message, Brian, I hope you enjoy the painting. Best wishes, your friend John Wayne Gacy. Additionally, he showed them letters and photos in the nightstand in his bedroom from Gacy as they'd become pen pals while Gacy was in prison. Your instinct is to give someone the benefit of the doubt if you've known them for that long, even in the face of this really bad sign, said Sullivan. This man who is like trusted as basically a supervisor of kids is not safe. Yeah, no, if you're a parent and you see that this creep has autographed pictures and letters from John Wayne Gacy, the serial killer, that would be a huge red flag. Right away, I would go to the supervisors or the producers. I'd be telling everyone at Nickelodeon, and if I didn't get the answer I got as a parent that drops my kid off at this place with this freak show, then I'd pull out of there. What are you talking about? Even as a child, that's a huge red flag. It's like I said about the Scotty Deem situation that we've recently covered as well. Where are the parents? They're not there. These people certainly aren't fit to be parents. Bell, for his part, also gave him the benefit of the doubt. He spent many nights at Peck's and then everything changed with Brian one morning, he said. I was sleeping on the couch where I could usually sleep. I woke up to him. I opened my eyes. I woke up and he was sexually assaulting me. I froze and was in complete shock and had no idea what to do or how to react. I have no idea how to get out of this situation, Bell said. 15 at the time. He didn't know what to do, and it became this secret. Because he knew that if he stopped going to Peck's, people would ask questions. Peck was so apologetic, saying it would never happen again. Drake Bell goes on to say he figured out how to convince my mom and everyone around to any time I would have to go to an audition or anytime I needed to work on dialogue or anything. I somehow ended up back at Brian's house, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. I was just trapped. I had no way out, said Bell. Drake Bell goes on to say the abuse was extensive and it got pretty brutal. I don't know how to elaborate about that on camera, really. Why don't you think of the worst stuff that somebody could do to someone as a sexual assault, and then I'll answer your question. I don't know how else to put it. Bell didn't immediately go to the police, but says in the documentary that his girlfriend's mother knew something was off after Peck called repeatedly one night when he was in the house. In fact, she then took him to a therapist after fearing he was in danger. I was just so scared to say anything. I didn't know how to explain it. I still don't. I've never talked about this outside of therapy. I just said, no, everything's normal. Things are getting a little weird, but nothing's happened. Good thing we caught it when we did. They're really downplaying it. When you watch the docuseries, I mean, Peck was calling the house when he was at his girlfriend's parents' house for hours because he wanted to get Drake to go to Disneyland, all these trips with them, and continue to keep him isolated. And at this time, Drake was really trying to distance himself, spend more time with his girlfriend and their family. And while I'm on the subject, his girlfriend's mother at the time, shout out to you because you're the hero of this whole docuseries, because Drake's mother was so complacent, she didn't even know what was going on. Thank God that you caught it when you did. Bell shortly began realizing how calculated Peck was. He recalled calling the entire situation mental manipulation. Since the acting coach knew so many producers in Hollywood, he had the ability to basically go, well, you're never going to work with this person, Bell said, so it was me believing that I could never be able to do this again. I didn't want to risk that. I was doing what I loved to do, so I just kept it inside. Shortly after, Drake began reshooting the Drake and Josh pilot and said that Peck tried to get cast as the dad on the show. Bell recalled, I was like, that is not going to happen. You're not coming anywhere near this show. Soon after, he exploded on the phone with his mom, telling her everything. She immediately called the police and a brutal investigation began. I had to be excruciatingly detailed about every single thing, every time that it happened with two absolute strangers. The worst part was I had to make a phone call to Brian and get him to admit to what he'd done, Bell said before recalling that the setup looked like a movie. As the police listened in on the phone call, I said, I'm really struggling with this stuff now. I'm so torn, I'm so broken, I'm so emotionally distressed right now. Why did this happen? He just started on a full-blown confession. He kept asking me over and over again. He was like, are we being recorded? Bell's stress was overwhelming. I was losing my hair. I had these big scabs on my head, he said. These emotions that were going through me, it's relief and fear. You know, am I going to survive this? After the August 2003 arrest, Schneider called him and asked if Peck's arrest had anything to do with him. I was close enough with Dan that I was like, yeah, man, this is what he's been doing. Dan just goes, you don't need to talk anymore about it. That's all I need to hear. Are you okay? Do you need anything from me? Is there anything that you need? He recalled, Brian was spending so much time around me that it was pretty obvious. Drake didn't say anything bad about Dan Schneider, but Dan Schneider is a big part of the reason why this happened in the first place, I would argue, because what kind of setting, what kind of work environment has he created? One where you can be a predator and touch kids. I should also mention that Brian Peck is in no way related to Josh Peck, Drake Bell's co-star on Drake and Josh. However, for Josh Peck and a lot of these kids that took the Nickelodeon hush money, realistically, you reach a certain kind of age or a certain level of maturity where you would rather be respected than famous. Y'all have already made a lot of money. And I find it disgusting how many Nickelodeon stars aren't speaking out in defense of Drake publicly. I just feel like if it's finally time to speak up about this, and all these lies are coming to light, and all these people that are in power positions that are abuse their power are starting to get dragged by the public. It's never been a better time to come forward and tell your story. And here's the thing, I think right away that's a limiting belief, because fuck the money, you know? You can write a book and tell your story, and I think you'd make more money from the book sales than you would from Nickelodeon. You've got the dumb former cast of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. That is a mouthful. It's not even in my top 10 Nickelodeon shows because the only interesting thing about the show was Coconut Head. That was the only interesting character that I remember to this day. Everyone else, it's all a blur because no one really cared about that show. But they were so quick to speak about this and make jokes about rape.
Told you. Daniel, we told you never to speak about that. Get back in your hole, Daniel, and give me your holes.
Honest to God, I'm not surprised to see them go for this distasteful shock humor, given how lackluster their personalities are and how they haven't had any noteworthy accomplishments since going on Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. Not to mention that they were really critical of Alexa Nicholas for speaking out about the atrocities that has happened offset and onset at Nickelodeon and labeled her as a liar when we all know that's not the case. Soon after the arrest, after a table read for all that, Sullivan claims that Schneider asked the parents to leave the room for our friends to speak to the kids. The kids were told Peck wouldn't be there anymore, asking if anyone had anything to say. Schneider told the doc producers that he had no part in telling the All That family what had transpired. Looky here, Socks, we got a picture of Drake Bell and Josh Peck. Check out what Josh had to say on TikTok while this was going on.
If I haven't talked to you since 2023, take that as a sign that you don't exist to me anymore. Damn, you bug. You got sprayed with the raid. Bye.
The first time I saw Josh Peck ever was in that movie Max Keeble's Big Move. He played this character called Robe, and he always was wearing a robe. He was pretty funny in the movie, but it's sad to see how he turned out later in his life, because from the way that he's talked about Drake publicly, you can tell that he's a fake ass person. He's someone that really does the most to hang out with David Dobrik and all these people that are using others to get ahead in life and come off incredibly disingenuous. And when Drake was going through the trials and tribulations, his cancellation because he was talking to an underage girl, he was so quick to just cut off all communication and make it seem publicly, at least, that he wasn't friends with Drake. He didn't invite him to his wedding. There's a lot of people like that in Hollywood and a lot of other industries that care more about their reputation than doing the right thing and standing by their day ones. And to be honest, when I see stuff like that, I just don't want to subscribe to that. I don't want to watch someone like that. And I think that a lot of people are starting to watch people based off of, you know, their morals, character, everything that I talked about previously, and less about what their sub count is or any superficial reason, or just certain people in society, news outlets telling us that this is a celebrity, you should follow them. I think a lot of people are trying to go back to watching real ass people. I'll tell you what, I'm not trying to be a hater or anything. There's something in me where it drives me insane to see people that talk like I'm a kid speak in a certain kind of way where it's like y'all just snorted lines of Ritalin off camera, and then you're sitting in front of the camera talking to me like I'm a child and speaking loudly in different octaves, and it just comes across as disingenuous and really fake. And Josh Peck was falling into that category for me. And the whole time I was watching this transition for him, I was just like, dude, like, you don't need to go this route to get to where you want to go. You're already a child star, you're already famous, you could just be more real. At the time, no one at Nick knew who the victim was, and it remained that way. A few weeks after Peck's arrest, Bell started filming Drake and Josh and loved what he was doing, but still didn't know how to process the happiness and excitement of filming with the trauma he had experienced. I think that led to a lot of self-destruction and a lot of self-loathing. I would try and just escape with alcohol abuse, substance abuse, really just anything to escape. Peck's sentencing wasn't until more than a year later in October of 2004. I was hoping that the outcome would be that he goes to jail, he is there for a while, and that he would never be able to work with kids again, which would in turn pretty much mean that you're not gonna work in Hollywood, because very few productions don't at least have one kid on the set, said Bell. That's not what happened at all. When it came time for the hearing in October, walking into the courtroom was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen, Bell said, explaining that Peck's side was full of supporters, including famous faces. Former Boy Meets World star Will Friedle previously revealed he attended the hearing as he had been manipulated by Peck. After Bell's mother made a statement, Bell took to the stand. While he felt he had no reason to address Peck, he did address the room. I looked at all of them and I just said, "How dare you? I said, you will forever have the memory of sitting in this courtroom and defending this person, and I will forever have the memory of the person you're defending violating me and doing unspeakable acts and crimes, and that's what I will remember. In addition, there were 41 letters written to the judge, all of which were sealed until now, by friends, family, and colleagues defending Peck's character. Many victim blamed, claiming that Peck must have been facing major temptation or had been pressured and pushed beyond relief if he did any of those things. Most shared how shocked they were by the allegations, and most asked to give Peck probation. Drake and Josh director Rich Correll and stage manager Beth Correll both wrote letters in defense, with Rich Correll saying it would be his pleasure to work with Peck again. And all of those actors and colleagues of Peck's that came to his defense should be blacklisted from Hollywood. You're disgusting. And for the dork on Boy Meets World, you were manipulated. You're a coward. You were old enough to know what was going on. You knew that guy was a creep. But you know what you did? You sold out a fellow actor, a fellow child star. You smell that? It's like opportunity is opening up in Hollywood, because this is a great chance to purge out the wicked and the evil and make room for the actual talented people that don't get their shot because they don't have the right connections. Peck pleaded no contest to 2 charges of child sexual abuse. He was sentenced to 16 months in prison and ordered to register as a sex offender. After his release, Peck landed a job on Disney Channel's The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, working again with the Corrells. They told the producers of the documentary that they had no input or involvement in the casting of Peck, and that when they asked him about the case, Mr. Peck simply replied that the problem had been solved. Oh yeah, Disney Channel, a channel for kids. Let's hire a convicted child molester. I'm not surprised, because Mouse Company has Looney Birds at the helm. I mean, come on, there's whole South Park episodes about it. What about the woman that they put in charge of that Star Wars show about the Sith Lords or whatever it was? She has a huge problem with men. What's the target demographic for Star Wars? It's mostly men. There's women that love Star Wars as well, and there's already really badass female characters in the Star Wars universe. Padme, Ahsoka, etc. What about all the Jedi on Geonosis that were women that were fighting to the death?
I like to make men uncomfortable.
It's so sad to see that people like that have an agenda are in positions of power, when realistically all you got to do is focus on making a good story, and then people from all different walks of life are going to come and watch whatever you put out. Variety confirmed that Peck performed voiceover work on 3 episodes of The Sweet Life, was never on set, and had 0 interaction with any cast or crew. One insider confirms that when the network learned of his conviction, he was immediately terminated, and his voice and on-screen credits on the 3 episodes had been replaced. Fair enough, clap it up for Mouse Company, that's good, but he should have never been hired in the first place. For his part, Bell had his fair share of legal troubles following his time on Nickelodeon, some of which he approached in the doc. I would have stints of sobriety, and then the pressure would be too much, and all these demons that I had were very difficult to work through, and so I think a lot of my self-destructive behavior would always just be a temporary fix, and it would always creep back up. He said, noting that he lost his house when he went through bankruptcy and later got a DUI. There was definitely a slow decline in my mental health, sobriety, DUIs, behaviors that were happening because I was lost. In 2001, Bell was arrested and pleaded guilty to charges of attempted child endangerment. He was sentenced to 2 years probation and 200 hours of community service. I took responsibility for that. I did what was asked of me. He said in the doc, the media grabbed a hold of so much misinformation and it absolutely destroyed me, and I started to spin out of control. In 2013, Bell made headlines again when the police announced he was missing and endangered. Bell said if I had continued down that path, that could very likely be the end of my story. I was at rock bottom, and so I checked into a treatment, and I got to go through a lot of trauma therapy, a lot of grief therapy, and be surrounded by people who for the first time in a long time wanted to just see me get better. Peck has not responded to Variety's request for a comment. A spokesperson for Nickelodeon gave the following statement to Variety. Though we cannot corroborate or negate allegations of behaviors from productions decades ago, Nickelodeon, as a matter of policy, investigates all formal complaints as part of our commitment to fostering a safe and professional workplace environment free of harassment or other kinds of inappropriate conduct. Our highest priorities are the well-being and best interests, not just of our employees, cast, and crew, but of all children, and we have adopted numerous safeguards over the years to help ensure we are living up to our own high standards and the expectations of our audience. Are you out of your mind? Regarding Bell, the spokesperson added, now that Drake Bell has disclosed his identity as the plaintiff in the 2004 case, we are dismayed and saddened to learn of the trauma he has endured. And we commend and support the strength required to come forward. Schneider also released the following statement at the end of the documentary. Everything that happened on the shows I ran was carefully scrutinized by dozens of involved adults. All stories, dialogue, costumes, and makeup were fully approved by network executives on 2 coasts. A standards and practices group read and ultimately approved every script, and programming executives reviewed and approved all episodes. In addition, every day on set there were always parents and caregivers and their friends watching us rehearse and film. Look at these rats trying to cover all their asses and shift blame to the next person. This is only the beginning because a storm's a coming.